Alrighty, welcome back everyone. Today we're going to make a forge. So my current propane forge is commercial made. My first propane forge was home built, and after that project I had this much kaowool left over, so I'm determined to make a forge out of this. As if I didn't have enough forges, I got two right here. So in the majority of my videos you'd see me using this guy. I usually only run one burner because that's all I need for most projects. But it's really nice having the extra space and heat. But I would like something smaller and also something that would be easier to bring to fairs because this thing's a monstrosity. And this guy's on top of a coal forge, which I use every once in a while when I need to do something that just doesn't really work in a propane forge, like it just doesn't fit or something. But yeah, I'd like a small kind of cube-shaped propane forge, so I think that this amount of kaowool is going to be perfect for that. Just a side note, if you're using this video as a means of building your own forge, when you're handling kaowool, make sure you got a respirator and some gloves on. I guess the particles of kaowool are pretty similar to asbestos, so you just don't want to mess around with it. Yeah, let's get started. So, I got the pieces cut out yesterday. I'm going to show you now kind of a dry fit, just so you can get an idea for what I'm shooting for. By the way, this is just plain 16 gauge sheet steel. So just pretty much, yeah, a little enclosure for the insulation. So now I'm going to weld it together first, and then I'll drill and then cut a circle in the top. Circle in the top for the burner. All right, welding time. So I think before I put the insulation in, I'm going to figure out where exactly I want the burner to sit, and we'll cut that out with the same tool that gave me billion slivers in the last episode, that carbide bit for the Dremel. So I know my insulation is 2 inches thick, and it's going to take up 3 of the walls. I'll take that out of the equation. Alright, so I have the insulation all installed in the shell, and I got a fire brick down for the base. So now the messy part of laying the refractory cement. This part's important because it extends the life of the kaowool and prevents stuff from, like flux, from eating away at it. More importantly, it encapsulates it, so it doesn't let the airflow blow all the fibers into the air and get into your lungs and stuff, so this part's really important. Alright, so it's starting to look like a forge. I'm going to let the refractory set overnight. From what I understand with the refractory, we're just going to want to light it and let it be at a very low temperature, and then just raise it up a little bit the next heat, and then raise it up a little higher and just work it up to operational temperature. So I'll set this guy somewhere safe for the night, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Later. Day 2.
All right, so I checked on it about hour 18. I threw a fan on it because it was still a little tacky. Gave it another day, and it's been about 48 hours, a little under. And I do believe it is time to fire it up for the first time. So I'm gonna start slow with very low temperature heats, and we'll work our way up to the average, forging temperature over time. I should mention that this burner is home built. It's based off of a video from, I believe, the Lazy Smith. I'll correct myself on the screen if that's not his name, but back in the day I used this video to kind of put this amalgamation together. I have it, so I'm going to use it, but if I didn't, I'd be making something pretty similar anyway. Trying to give it as little pressure as it'll happily burn with. Alright, so it took me a while to remember how I got this to work back in the day. But on Venturi style burners, you can make the fuel to air mixture richer or leaner by choking the air inlet. So with this one, I literally just drilled a screw in the side of this T-joint pipe. Then I, like a savage, just jammed this decking screw into the hole that I produced in the pipe. Then I can kind of bind a piece of sheet steel in the threads of the screw in whatever position I want. So I do kind of just want a richer flame that spills out, not quite like a torch, but more just an open flame type of deal. So to do that, less air, more propane relatively. So I'm gonna choke it a little bit there like that and see how it does. Alright, so this heat, I got it very close to forging temperature. I'm not seeing nearly as much steam as I have in the previous heats. The refractory cement does have some cracks and bubbles in it. Especially in the early stages, I could have gone a lot slower. I don't think I could have run it any cooler. I think I would have just needed to have shorter periods of heating. You can use the aptly named Satanite or ITC 100. And I believe those do a lot better with not bubbling and cracking. This is just, off-the-shelf hardware store refractory cement. All right, so a little happy accident with the choke. You don't need to bind the sheet steel in the screw because it turns out the screw is threaded, so you can just spin it, which way? Like that, and you get your neutral flame. That scared the crap out of me. Back it out the other way and you get your oxidizing flame. I think those are the correct terms. I'm sorry, I just saw my life flash before my eyes. So now I may do one more cycle and then I'll patch the cracks with just a little more cement and make sure everything looks happy and there's no exposed fibers. Then I might as well give it a paint job and start forging some stuff.
So it was too tempting. I had to, at least try it out. So I christened it, and we have our first forged item on the new forge. Just a quick and dirty forged leaf keychain thing. So I'm gonna let it finish cooling down, and then we can give it a snazzy paint job and call it a forge. All right, but before we paint it, I'm gonna touch up the refractory cement, just because I don't want me or a loved one to suffer from
mesothelioma. You may be entitled to financial compensation.
So like I said earlier in the video, there is some crackling and bubbling. Specifically right here, there's the biggest bubble I've ever seen. Interestingly enough, it's mostly the small bubbles that are the weak points. That ginormous bubble in the back, which I will nickname Krakatoa. Anyway, Krakatoa is like incredibly structurally sound. Like I've kind of poked that vigorously, and it's fine. I just want to touch up those cracks like you can see around there towards the top there, and also on the sides and stuff. And the worst spot is probably right here, which is probably where I see evidence of some fibers coming through. I'm no doctor, so don't take this as medical advice, but I'm pretty sure I'm safe here even as is. I made sure that, all the surfaces of the kaowool was impregnated with cement, and it's probably kind of hard to get airborne once you do that. So underneath the bubbles that popped and then broke off, there's a layer of cement. It's not anywhere close to the kaowool, so that's just air escaping during the curing process. But I just want to patch the weak points and make sure it's good to go. All the bubbling and cracking is kind of to be expected when you're opening a portal to hell in your garage. Like I said earlier, Satanite would have been a more permanent solution. But this is a build on the cheap, and this is going to do. Also, I'd like to note, even though this kunai exploded in the last episode, it's still kind of a functioning kunai. I mean, if you look at what the actual use of these things were back in the day, they were primarily improvised weapons, and first and foremost, they were basically masonry trowels. So now I got one that's a proper weapon and one that's a proper masonry trowel. That's all I got for today's episode. Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to see the future products of Baby Forge, make sure to subscribe to the channel, and also check out LeShaneSteel.com because the products will be showing up there. Thanks again for 500 subscribers, and yeah, I will see you guys next time.